changes. We just want to look back over it and say, is that what we wanted to do? If there's changes that we need to make them. And then from this committee, we are an advisory committee. We don't actually pass code. We will give it to the code passers, but trust me, they don't want to write this code. That's why they asked us to do it. So they have the opportunity to review, to make any revisions that they feel they need, and then they'll pass it or won't pass it. I mean, I don't see how they wouldn't, but I've been wrong before on things. So.
And you've been on the city council before.
Yes, I have.
So you have experience.
I've seen some stuff die that shouldn't have. But, yeah. But I think it's not perfect. Nothing is. But this is far, far more usable than what we've been working with.
Cool.
Okay. So, having said that, we have Peter, we have Andy, we have Tim, we got me. We're missing Misty and we're missing Marie. But we have a quorum, so we'll call it to order at 5:10 p.m. All right. First thing to do is approve the agenda. So
I'll approve.
Okay, move to approve the agenda. Any objections to approving the agenda as written?
Well, Mr. Chair, if I can just interject
Sure,
here,
go for it. Oh, wait a minute.
I don't think it really matters. It's just the order. So the agendas always have the public hearing part to adopt the resolution first. But I went ahead and included a committee of the whole section. So you may want to change the order, do your committee of the whole first, and then when you're done doing your talking, then you can.
Thank you.
So it's just a.
You're correct.
So we need a motion to do that, right?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to move committee of the whole ahead of
New business.
new business.
Yeah, ahead of the resolution. Any objections to that, gentlemen?
No objection.
Okay. Seeing no objection, we will move item 5.2 and it will become ahead of 5.1. Any other changes or to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda passes. Previous minutes. Anybody have any objections to the previous minutes? Even know this. I know I read them in a separate piece.
Should be the second, third page in, page 3 and 4.
That's resolution.
Page 3 of your packet.
Yep. So
Where's
planning
yours?
commission resolution serial number.
Oh, she didn't include your minutes.
No.
Are you missing page 3 and 4?
It says this is page 3, but it's the resolution.
Well, that's weird. Yeah, because my packet was created last week. Well, I can pull them up for you if you'd like to see them. Let's see. I believe, let me pull mine and see.
Well, I can't imagine they're different than the ones prior.
They're just decisional. There's really no specific notes, but I will pull them up just for a second.
Well, once we see them improving, then they're gone forever. So.
I'll have to share screen in a minute. Just want to make sure they were there.
That was mine. Yeah, mine's good.
Mine's not. That's not it. I don't want that. Sorry, give me just a second.
It's March 6th.
Figure out what screen I'm sharing, because I'm only seeing one, so I've lost my share.
Was it March? It was 14th. When was the last meeting? It was 14. It was.
Can Andy and Peter, can you see the minutes?
I've
Yes,
actually
indeed.
got them pulled up on my computer.
All right, as long as everyone's had the chance to review.
So I think that's the, I mean, it just said Marie was absent and Misty was absent, and then that's the rest of the minutes.
I don't have any objections to them.
Okay. No other objections to the meetings as written, or meetings, the minutes as written? Hearing none, that's our minutes. All right. Next item on the agenda, committee of the whole.
Make a motion to enter committee of the whole. Right?
Yeah, very much. Any objections? Skipping the seconds, but hearing none. All right, committee of the whole. So the question becomes, do we want, how deep in this review do we want to go today?
I had a couple of comments to
Take it.
go for.
Go for it.
Okay. All right. So let's start with 33040, the landscape plan.
Should have line numbers out to the side. Is yours, oh, did you print it
I
out?
printed it out, so.
That's right, we'll get it next up.
Okay,
33,
you're in the strike through and underline version.
yeah.
I'll try and get you there. What'd you say, 1633?
Yeah, the very last page, the underside distance triangles.
Oh, that is just hanging there.
Yeah, my comment is basically to say, I think we should add something. It could be as soon as little as where appropriate, or something like that. After, you know, to add them where appropriate. But I said site distance triangles shall be shown on the plan for approaches where planting materials within 20 feet of the edge of travel way, the public street or internal access drive/road with design speeds 25 or 20 miles per hour or more.
Should be page 11 of your strike through ordinance. If you look at the actual ordinance page number, reso page numbers instead of the packet, since mine may not match yours.
So page 11 of strike through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
number 15.
It's line 249, should be.
So that could, I suppose, say where appropriate, right after site distance triangles. I don't want to have to do site distance triangles for every plan we create.
Lord help us know.
Yeah, right. So,
I think it's actually duplicate,
okay.
but I was gonna go back through this. I know it was a placeholder at one time, somewhere it came up. But I know that Peter did some definitions and added some
Okay.
language, but I'm trying to find it.
Tim, as a question for you, we normally show site distance triangles on any code properties in order to make sure, because they're normally exiting out to a road. What situation do you think that they wouldn't be of benefit?
When you're, well, one with, when you're plant materials, I guess I'm looking at it as far as the landscaping plan goes. So as long as your plant materials are more than, I mean, really you could go probably more than 10 feet, because typically your decision point is usually around 12 feet back from the edge of travel way. But I just made it 20 feet, so that way it kind of encompasses anything that is, you know, starting to get close. But basically, yeah, 20 feet from the edge of traveled way of a public approach, or public road, or a road sign more than 20 miles an hour is what the way I've written that.
Oh, okay, okay. So
I just don't want to have to do site, you know, for a parking lot.
yeah.
all the
So
access
basically,
files and
with what
everything.
you just said, 95% of the time you'll be showing site triangles on.
On your public approach, yeah.
Gotcha.
But I don't want to do them on any internal access drives unless we're exceeding 20 miles an hour. Because I don't think it'll be warranted for those.
So where you want to look is page 24 of 54 in your reso, line 523. That's where there's language about the site triangle.
Okay.
And maybe it needs to add
there we
there
go,
what
okay.
you're talking about, and we can strike the other one. I'm not sure.
And Tim, to add to what you were saying is, yeah, I don't think site triangles for internal site circulation. This is just where it's going out to public right of way. So maybe that's a better way to say it. Site triangles for access to public right of way.
Yeah, that would work. Just add that to it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking here.
Well, this is just a component of your plan.
Site distance triangles.
So if you were, like it says, north arrow scale or lot lines, these don't really tell you what you're supposed to put, like height, quantity, whatever. This is just a checklist that you need to show them. You could put a note that just says as required in this chapter.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah,
Then
right
it-
there. Yeah. That works.
And to meet Tim's intent, Tina, maybe within our definitions, we say site triangles for connection to public rights of way.
That makes more sense. Because internally, who cares? I mean,
Well, it talks about
As a
street
group.
intersections, is all it's talking about in the definition anyway. It doesn't, I mean, the definition's on page 6 of 54, if you wanted to see that,
All right.
and see if that captures what you're looking for. Yeah, Brezzo serial number, page 6 of 54. Oh, sorry, then it would be line 132.
It's
Oh, you don't?
on- Sorry, it's on
Yeah.
here. It's sheet 8.
sheet of 56.
Yeah, site restrict. It's because we
Oh.
have the.
Hmm. Oh, that's
You're working
right.
off the different sheet of music
But
there.
even your Rezo should be still page 6 of 54,
Nope,
but
8
it's
of
not.
56.
Wait, what is going on there?
I have both written on mine.
Yes.
6 of 54.
Yeah,
And
604 and then 8 of 56.
Yeah, I'm not quoting the bottom one, I'm quoting the one in the
Okay.
actual
Okay.
book.
All right, yeah.
Since that one seems to track right.
We've got no lines on it though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't have the pit line
No line
number, you got
numbers.
it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay, I guess that does cover it then. Maybe
That's in the back.
add, and maybe we just change street intersections to approaches, how would I say?
Approaches
Intersections.
approaches to public right of way.
And yeah, but I would say street intersections and approaches to public right of way.
Yeah.
Keep the street intersections, just say it.
So, and approaches to public rights of way.
And then to be very clear is if you have a corner lot, you will have to apply that to your driveway entrances, but then you'll also have to apply it to the street intersection that happens at the corner of your lot to make sure you're not having that impact beyond driveways.
Correct.
Right.
I think that's a really good clarification, Tim. Thanks.
That was number one.
Yeah, well, that's a good one.
Other comment I found, more general, kind of the way we have it
Never mind.
set up, sorry.
You got a big one. I just like, the print was so tiny. I didn't know if you want to keep going.
His eyes haven't changed.
I was gonna
You got a
say,
few
you
more
probably can
years.
still see.
You got a few more years.
What I found was, well, we have the requirement in our table for certain things. One being the 15% of your lot area required to be landscaped. But I didn't think that it was very intuitive or easy to find, I suppose. I didn't know if we wanted to repeat it somewhere else, like under purpose or some, or maybe just general landscaping requirements. We just put the cross section back. But I thought it would be helpful to say, basically, all lots, developed lots, looking for 15% landscaping of the area.
Just so it's clear.
Just so it's real clear, yeah, the kind of, because it is in there under our site enhancement
Site enhancement landscaping. So a question on
Yeah.
that, Tim, is the benefit of moving to the tables was the tables are the primary place you start,
Okay,
and then the text supports the tables.
right. But you get what I'm getting at, like, it seemed like it was kind of hard to find as far as what. And then and on that same line, with the parking road terminations, like, you find what you're supposed to do, but it's not real clear, I suppose, that they have to be in there, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking at it incorrectly, I don't know, but,
Could it, and this is where, so this works from a code perspective, but it's not necessarily fully intuitive.
right,
Would it be benefit if there was a paragraph that says, it basically just gives the intent of it to say all sites have 15% of this
yeah,
and may have these, see the tables below for all
Right.
requirements?
right. Something along those lines, I think would
Yeah.
cover us.
A lead in.
Yeah, so
Verification.
directly preceding this table, 060-2 could just be a paragraph that says this table below, a summary of the table intent.
Where would we put that? Give me a page number so I can see it.
It'll be at the top of 28, just as that table starts. Is that what you were saying, Peter?
Yeah, I think between, so there
Because
is
that's
table
table 2.
between 0601 and 0602.
Oh, because you have purpose, then you have applicability. So then it would make sense to add a 3.
Oh,
And
yeah. Sorry, yes. So before table 1.
Before
Okay.
table 2? I'm
Yeah.
confused.
So if you have 1 dot purpose, 2 dot applicability, and 3 dot summary.
Oh, yes, on 060 or 061. Oh, no, 060.
Oh, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying, Peter. I was looking at the other one. So you want number
And
3
it's always
before
the
you
weird
start
thing
the
with
first one?
tables is tables never happen in the right place because of how they get referenced.
Right.
Yeah, that was one thing that I looked at. I'll just jump in because I had Tahara look at it because she gives out information to people who are asking about landscaping, plus I'm gonna have to use it. And the tables are good, but I noticed that Anchorage still keeps some of their text out of a table. And I think that some of this might benefit from that if we do like your L1, L2, B1, B2, so it has some kind of identifier, and then have the narrative below it with some of the more wordier language, extra stuff. You can put the key things in there, and then maybe like the additional requirements and the optional design standards, they could be in a narrative below. Just to keep it clean. That was something I was wondering, because like I said, Anchorage goes back and forth. Some of their tables have a whole lot of stuff, and then some of them they keep it out of.
Yeah, and then the main difference on this one, we when I was going through this, was the intent column. In Anchorage, the intent column lives in narrative. It's not in the table. So the only reason I like this is you don't have to go anywhere except the table. Everything is in it.
But the other thing to consider is you can always have a table like this that is a tool that's posted on the website that's not your code language. So for flow and for use, you could keep it more streamlined and paired together. And then for on the website, if you want this 11x17 cheat sheet that's got everything in one place, then it could be there as just a user tool, but not trying to force that amount of content into a table that becomes smaller, because the municipal code provider is going to shrink it even more and change. The table won't look like a table once it gets codified, because it's going to roll over pages. You can click on it and open it. But I don't know. There were a few things that I had questions about too.
So what I hear from you then is a negative unintended consequences. The text for this is going to become small. So it's almost better to have it in narrative format due to how the code is formatted.
I think a combination of both, because like I said, I think some of the things are really good for calling it out and getting it there so you know that there's these components.
Yeah.
Then there could be a column that says C section or subsection, blah, 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 for additional
Yeah.
requirements. Kind of
As
a
far as
thing.
I'm concerned, it's 6 to 1, half a dozen another. I think that's a good idea, because then literally you would wind up having a header, say visual enhancement landscaping, and then below it you'd have intent : bed width and location : so you're just taking the table, turning it into a paragraph based format.
Yep,
Right.
just bullet it out. And
Yeah,
and just
I
layout-wise,
certainly have, I have
text.
no objection to that at all.
I'd rather see some more headers in there too, some moving over here back and forth,
Yeah.
match them up, you know.
It's-
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. That's another
Yeah.
thing that we lose, because see, even Anchorage's, we printed it out from their website and they don't roll the headers.
That drives me nuts.
And that's why I said it might be better to create this. I think it's a great tool for someone to have. You're sitting there drawing something up. I can go print this 11x17 master table. But if you're like citing a section of the code, it may be easier to go the narrative. You know,
Yep.
you can just.
As long as the words match.
Right.
Yeah, it just moves from horizontal information to vertical paragraph based information. I
How
don't
do
think
we
it
turn our
changes.
table sideways?
Which is
Anchorage
fine,
did
too.
some of theirs that way too, and I thought, some are upright, some are sideways. I'm like,
Well,
Consistency.
kind of a choice thing.
Okay, and then I think the only other one I had was under, so this would be on page 31 of 54, you got B, parking lot landscaping, and then there's a bunch of stuff crossed out, well, there's a little bit of stuff crossed out, and then there's the general start to the paragraph, to the section, which 1 through 3, I didn't have any issue with, but then you get to 4, and it says parking lot perimeter, and it gives you where you find that, but then we crossed out 5 on parking road terminations, and it seemed like to me we should keep that, or at least maybe say that is parking lot interior to include, you know, IE or EG parking lot or parking road terminations, and then say all parking, and keep that first sentence, all parking stalls shall be terminated at each end with landscaping area that meet, and then say that meets criteria of, or meets table 1633-060-2, or the requirements of that section. That way it's shown that they're required. Again, kind of going back to, you know, the 15%, kind of same kind of comment. I don't know. It was, yeah, same thing, but different section, different area.
And Tim, if this becomes a narrative format rather than the tables, does that satisfy some
I
of
think so.
your?
Yeah, because it would. Yeah, because it does say on the table, it was under additional requirements, but I was thinking if we're going to keep it table format, you move that under location requirement. But yeah, it would mention that because it is under your additional requirements that all road, you know, basically reiterates what was crossed out there. So that would work.
as long as you keep your narrative headers and table headers the same.
And the reason we collapsed it into parking lot interior landscaping was parking road terminations was kind of confusing.
Yeah.
Because it's really just parking lot landscaping.
Right. But we make reference to termination, so I want to bring it in there somewhere that says, you know, these have to be done at a minimum, like that's what we're looking for your interior. And anything beyond that, whether it's down between, you know, the length of your row, between the abutting vehicles or other areas, but I did want to just specify that the road terminations are required. It's the rest of it that is supplemental to that, I suppose.
Yeah. And they all happen within the header of parking lot interior landscaping.
Yeah, exactly.
So Peter, I like your tables and I like keeping them in the text too. What I noticed as I was going through, so I have a draft that I'll bring up later and I should just be quiet now and let you guys roll through it. But I just wondered, does it, from a user standpoint and from the goal you were striving for, that ease of use, does it hurt them to break the table up by each section and then have the narrative under it and then the piece of table and then the additional narrative under it? Does it lose its usability that way when you break it up?
Speaking from my technical use of all of this, I love these tables the way they turned out because they are so succinct. And I think it's either one or the other. I don't like how Anchorage splits things up.
Okay.
So if this just becomes narrative, it makes perfect sense. But I think in tables, I don't necessarily think in narrative. So I think it all depends on how the general person, the main person who will be using this or referencing this, what's easiest for them. And I think the key to it is if it's online and these tables get broken up or they're squished, unless you always have full control over how these tables look, it could create confusion. Whereas text will just get longer if it's narrower. So I think text is better for the formats within which somebody might read it. Does that make sense?
And then just have the tool available on the website or somewhere that you can.
Yeah, and
We
then
might
really
could even embed a link to the document, to that full table.
yeah, and they would really they'd be fully identical, but it would be like either 5 paragraphs down or 5 columns to the right. They're the same thing. My worry is always double dipping or duplication.
Right. Yeah.
We never want to repeat the same information twice.
Right.
That was. First time a table thing up, but.
Yeah.
And then when appropriate, I think I only have 2 comments. Tim, were you finished with your comments?
I think so.
We had talked about, and I don't have an answer for this one or a recommendation for this one for conformance, Tina. 1633.030 exemptions F non-conforming. We didn't really touch that. It says to the extent feasible, I think is what it says. I think it's fine to leave it the way it is, but in the future, if there's a way to quantify that or come up with another system, we had talked about it, but we didn't come to a solution for that.
We can finish this one, but I do have one more.
0204. Back this way.
So that actually ties into, Peter, yours. You're right. We never did get to language about how does a city planner determine what's reasonable. But we also, in your reso, oops, I'm looking at my clean version. Let me go back. I don't know if it's the same page number.
You said 020, right?
030.
Sorry, 1633.030.
Okay, great, because I'm like 20 doesn't exist.
Yeah, because there's a waiver part that's tagged in on the end of either 50 or 60, and I'm trying to get to it. Oh, so if you look at your reso on page 49 of 54, letter E is waivers. So that one actually relates to what you were just talking about, Peter, because I found that when I was going through it, was there's some more language that's similar that talks about when you already have an existing use. And it at least says where it's physically infeasible due to the location of existing structures or required paved parking. And that may be where the group talked about it and it didn't get captured in the right spot. I may have put it in the wrong spot. So I had made a note to either move that E waivers under the section you just talked about, Peter, under exemptions, somehow merge that in, or create like a subpart underneath the hardship waiver / variance section of the code and add that in. So it could go either way. I just had a note to to put it somewhere because it's kind of gets lost there.
And I think there, and can clarify if I'm wrong on this, but the waiver really deals with site conditions that preclude doing something, whereas the other one really is about an existing site that has conformance or non-conformance issues.
Could be. At this point, I'm not sure how it applies anymore,
Okay.
to be honest, because we've done so much shifting around. So, but I think we could steal that same language and put it in the front. So at least it talks about, because you got a building in the way or you've got some asphalt parking that's, you know, so at least it defines it a little bit instead of none whatsoever. So I think it could be used both places, even if you don't want to move it from there because you think it needs to be there, which it might need to be. It could be copied over to that other section.
And as long as it's clear that they're the two, I think they're the two uses to that. One is that if someone comes in and has an existing site that doesn't meet the new landscape code, they need to put it in, you know, to the greatest extent possible. Or the other one is if someone has a fresh site, but it has really limiting features to it, that there's some planner ability to assess that.
Topography issues.
Yeah, and that's what this waiver actually says. It says when one of the permitted uses in the zoning district, meaning you can't be a prohibited one now, but if you're still listed as a permitted one, is proposed for expansion. The
Expansion, okay.
Yeah, the applicable requirements for that use shall be met. The city planner may reduce or waive the requirements where they are physically infeasible due to the location of existing structures or required paid parking.
Oh, but it's for expansion, so that is related to the conformance aspects, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I was thinking we can move that and merge it together and make it be one statement versus, because it's kind of like just hanging out there on its own.
And which one was that again?
It's page 49 of 54 is the waiver language.
And then tangential, but Tina, in your email, I think you had references to, you know, how much work happens on this. With the edits that we have, I think we're down to things like conformance and a couple other items that if they stayed the way they were, it would be okay because they weren't the big complaints. What's your feeling now as we try to get what we have and what we agree upon approved, knowing that there will still continue to be items, or do you think we try to make this perfect?
I don't know that you're going to get it perfect, but I think that the committee, at least from what I've heard from the community, what was in the American Society of Landscape Architects email from some of the other people, I think it hit at least the bigger items, the bigger concerns, the bigger issues, the more cost, you know, prohibitive type issues from either cost or availability even, you know, for size of plants, that kind of stuff. So I think it hits a lot of it. I mean, I personally, as a planner, recognize just like a comp plan has to be updated so many years, you should look at your codes every so many years. Now, if somebody were to say, we're gonna pick this up again next year, I'd probably go, oh, yeah, we're hiring a consultant because I'm not, you know.
Don't call me.
But I mean, you know, unless, you know, and if something came up, you know, we use it, somebody recognized, oh, wow, when we move that, we really messed this up and that's an unintended, we can run a one shot. You know, it doesn't mean like the committee has to be reconvened or anything. The understanding is we're going to find things that are mistakes and we can tweak them as we go. But as far as a major rewrite, probably wouldn't be for another 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
And the reason I asked that is relating to the waiver or conformance or these last items.
Well, my recommendation was actually why I left the committee of the whole on. I'll just go ahead and say it is. Right now, you guys have captured, I believe, all the languages you wanted is captured in there. But I think I'm finding I was out the last 2 weeks, but then I've been reviewing it last week and a little bit this week. I'm finding too many things that I think are going to create flow issues and people are going to get lost in it. That my recommendation would be to just wrap up all the things everybody has comments about and questions, and let's get one more clean version, meet in a couple weeks, and then send it out. I know the goal is to rush it out, but to rush it out in a confusing manner, I don't think is gonna, yeah, I don't, and there's a lot of good work in there, and I just think that it hasn't, and part of it's the constraints on my time, not being
So-
able to,
Where should we move? Let's just do this. What is that section number again?
oh, you're talking the,
E over there.
move it up
Waivers.
to 1633.030. Yeah, it would be under letter G somewhere, somehow, either be a sub number or be incorporated in there.
16,
33.030 G.
030. G to George. That'd be good. Get it out of this section.
And one of the things, I can pull it up on the screen. I did this afternoon. I created you guys a table of contents, what it looks like with the organization that we have and with a couple notes on it as to how to move it. So when we get to that point, I can hand them out and then you guys can use them too to look at it to see if that flow actually makes sense to you, because it's hard to tell a flow when you're dealing with a double spaced page. But I think the outline helps you see whether, is it in logical and reasonable order? Would I expect to find that information here? That kind of stuff I think will be helpful. But, because guarantee is the same thing. It's another one that's kind of lost. And I think Andy brought that one up the last time, that it kind of comes as a shock to a lot of the developers that, what? Where did this come from? I didn't know there was a guarantee required. So I have that proposed moving up to its own subsection up near the top.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in your face, bam, right there. What is a guarantee? Let me look at that. What does this say? Does this apply to me?
Yeah, start running early.
Yeah.
That is, I think it's guaranteed now. That is.
It is under 1633.050F. But let me see if I can find that. Okay, so it's on page 25 of 54 of your ordinance, your reso. I keep saying ordinance,
Sure.
because it will be someday.
Yeah.
Just,
You
I'm
said what
just a
page?
bill, I'm only a bill.
What page is that?
25 of 54.
Guaranteed. Yeah, that is buried in the middle nowhere.
Right, so
Yeah.
moving it up, it would go up to 1630, right after, so you would have purpose for the whole chapter, applicability for the whole chapter, exemptions, your landscape plan requirements, which is your checklist, what do you need to have on that landscape plan, and then the next one will be guarantee, and then you get into the meat of what are the rules.
Yep,
So,
I'm good with that. Anybody else not good with that?
I'm good with it.
Great. Let's move that to.
And I think to reiterate what I like about that, it's adding some of the procedural stuff, the
Right.
paperwork and the procedural stuff in the same section.
Yeah, so that it's no surprises.
Because I
so-
think between the guarantee, the waiver, the non-conforming aspects, I'm trying to think if there are any other procedural type things, but other than that, it's really just a landscape plan that meets requirements, right? Is there anything else procedural?
not really, the only other one is, afterwards, inspection, maintenance,
Yeah,
and then variance is typically left at the end, and I think that's more because that shouldn't be your go-to.
No.
That's supposed to be after I've tried to meet all the code, I just can't do it, what are my options? Oh wait, at the end, there's a variance option.
So we said we're gonna move guarantee to what, 1633?
I'll create a new subsection, it would be
Oh.
.045. It'll be its own little
Okay.
section.
Right now.
Oh, sweet. So then we'll have a little procedure section kind of thing.
Yeah,
Everything at the top will be procedures.
Cool. And then, Tim, I think you said that you had something else, or?
Yeah. So where we talk about perimeter, parking lot perimeter landscaping, we have a lot of references as far as like in general. In fact, just looking at page 32 of 54, number 4, parking lot perimeter, landscaping shall be shall be provided along perimeter lot lines. So we're talking about parking lot perimeter landscaping, but all of our requirements are along perimeter lot lines. Doesn't specify that we want it along lot lines that have parking adjacent to it, right? Like we're not, because,
Are you talking the interior?
no, this is parking lot perimeter.
So you're talking street?
Yes. But it says lot line, doesn't say, like, so that would, to me, it's reading that you have to do parking lot perimeter landscaping along that whole lot line. It doesn't really specify that's when your parking lot is adjacent to the lot line.
Right.
Right. Or where the parking lot is adjacent to the lot line.
And that matters.
So that could be-
So the
So-
table didn't have that information in it?
I didn't see it. I didn't see it.
We had a little bit of parking discussion last time. So the
Yeah.
table is based on parking area as viewed from the adjacent right of way. So that's still what it requires. So it doesn't matter where your parking lot is. If you can see it,
I
it
got
gets
you.
parking lot perimeter landscaping.
But it has to do with the parking lot, not the lot line. Where all of our specification of where it needs to go is referencing the lot line. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it has to happen. So if you're, and this is my interpretation to see if we're on the same page, is that if you're in the street and you see a parking lot 200 feet away,
Right.
the 8 feet or 10 feet at the property line needs to be planted in order
Right.
between you and that parking lot.
Right.
The,
And where-
the planting happens at the property line.
Right. And what I'm saying the issue is that if
Should
you
we change
had,
it to within the property line?
say you have a parking lot that's half the width of your lot, your adjacent lot line.
Yep.
Right now, the way I think this is written could be interpreted is that you would have to have landscaping extending past your parking lot for the remainder of that lot line. Because it's talking about lot lines, you know what I'm saying? It's talking about the lot line, not the parking lot.
And this is the challenge of the visible from the right of way.
Right. So,
But there's also the issue of elevation. If you're looking down on it, you can't, you're always visible. So is it just the perimeter of the lot? Or is it?
so my thought was,
How do we address
I guess
that?
Within Anchorage, it's and I can't remember if it's in code. The intent of it is that if you have a parking lot that takes up 50% of the lot line, you just do it along directly adjacent to the parking lot on
Yeah.
that property line.
right,
Even though if you go down a bit, you might be able to look at it.
right. And my thought was, I think maybe we just need to state that parking lot adjacent, or the lot line park adjacent to the parking lot or something along the, I don't know, I guess.
Yeah, take the gray out of it a little bit.
So really, the only thing that section did was, before we talked about it, was you had your normal site perimeter landscaping, that 10-ish foot bed,
Right.
and you had to add a 3 foot or 2.5 foot hedge in addition to that, or within that perimeter bed. So maybe it just got lost in translation? Because really, that was the only difference. It wasn't like another one on top of your perimeter. It was just, if your parking happens to butt the perimeter along the street, you have to add this hedge.
Right.
Along the length of the
So-
park.
Yes.
And this one, we're
So-
increasing the,
To make a recommendation, we say provide 1 tree and 10 shrubs per 30 or 30 lineal feet of lot line. That could be changed to say per 30 lineal feet of lot line, as measured along the parking lot, or something like that.
or just, maybe we just say a parking lot, one tree and 10 shrubs per 30 linear feet of parking lot perimeter. Or we do that?
Or perimeter adjacent to.
Or
No, per perimeter adjacent to the property line.
yeah, I would concur with that, because then, so the benefit is, the intent is still that it makes the parking lot look nice. But now we're
Yes.
quantifying it, that you're upgrading from site perimeter, which you're required to
Yes.
have, to parking perimeter, equivalent to the length of the parking lot.
Right. Right.
We just got to make sure that's perfectly clear that it's not in addition to, that it is a supplement to.
Right. Right.
Yep.
Because that's come up as a question for me as to, do I have to do an extra 3 feet or 5 feet for this hedge, or can I
Right,
put it within the 10? And I just as an interpretation said, if you can fit it in the 10, do it in the 10, but the other landscape architects say, I can't even fit in the plantings in the 10. I'm like, well, then do it in 3 additional feet. I mean, if you can make it fit it. If you can't, don't.
And that gets back to the clarity of things, is that now we do have text that says a higher standard is what takes precedence.
Right.
Yeah.
What we could always add for redundancy in this is to say, if within the intent is this replaces site perimeter landscaping.
Right.
This is
For
That's
that
huge.
section, for that section along the parking lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I kind of like that because you're clearly defining going to a higher level of landscaping at those areas rather than just overlaying or overlapping two landscaping standards.
Yeah. And I think that would be appropriate to just add to the, so it says create an aesthetically appealing parking lot, blah, blah, blah. At the end of this period, this code requirement replaces the applicable, or however it works.
Okay. So it'd be under the intent part.
If that seems appropriate,
Okay.
since we're just giving a little bit of explanation on what trumps what.
Okay.
So you guys are saying lot lines, those are only the side lines, the side lot lines, or the road right of way line as well?
So the parking lot perimeter
Yeah.
is the road right of way and residential uses.
Okay,
So,
that's a little confusing.
yeah.
Perimeter on the lot, on the sidelines, or?
And then
road,
the
just
perimeter of the lot is covered under the L1, which
Yeah.
is, the
Okay.
visual enhancement, or L2, L3. Depending on the table for adjacent uses.
So maybe we need a definition of parking lot perimeter and parking lot interior.
That would work too,
Yeah.
I mean, just to make it clear. I mean,
Yeah,
and maybe
I was
we
a
just put
little
it in
confused.
parenthetical underneath the first column where it says parking lot perimeter. It can
Right,
have a
then-
note in there, this is the area, you know, whatever, or.
And then when you have it in the narrative form, it would just go, right
Right.
after that parking lot perimeter includes this.
Yep, clarification.
I think I like that.
And Tina, when it moves to being paragraph form, what Anchorage does do that this doesn't have is they do have a couple more sentences describing exactly what it's supposed to do. So this
Okay.
maybe becomes a bit friendlier, that it gives that the couple of sentence context that makes it clearer.
Okay, I'll look at theirs for some examples.
Yeah, I'd much rather see a table like that than read through all the code and try to figure
Yeah,
stuff out.
breaks it up there.
If we're gonna do it, keep the code, or we're gonna make the code narrative and have these supplemental information, we should put the applicable code.
Oh, put the code
Just
sections in there.
right where,
Yeah.
right, yes.
Because you can build a PDF and throw it on websites.
You could have links to it anyway.
Yeah.
Yep. Also good.
That covers that.
Any other issues we've got? Anything else unclear?
And then Tina, I'm hoping my red comments don't make it into the final where people will blame me.
Yeah.
Who's
No,
this PB guy?
Yeah.
Peanut butter.
Yeah. No, they will not. Like I said, because I knew that we would at least have to talk about it first, it gave you something to look at, to know that that was something you should talk about, and then it will get pulled out.
And if somebody has the time to watch these videos, we're all in trouble. Well, I would love to see it just in a final form with all the extra underlined strike throughs. Yeah, I know we gotta do it, but
Oh, it's, should be in the back. Yours is yellow. That's
I
weird.
know, yeah, see what I'm saying? It's just like,
Here, I can. I think something must have glitched because the packets were printed this afternoon and
all
mine,
I'm saying is,
yeah, it was online that way.
well, sure, but no, it's this
I can
way.
pull it up.
No, don't, my brain's full.
Okay.
Don't do it for me. If somebody else needs it, that's cool, but don't do it for me. See, now it's, I mean,
Yeah, because it's a lot easier to
and now I
read.
got numbers too, and all that stuff's great.
So then, Tina, to confirm what you've said is that the comments we're bringing up this evening help to clarify a couple things. You're going to go through and continue to look for unintended consequences and iron those out. And then we'll get a final copy that we'll review and hopefully give a thumbs up to at our next meeting.
That's what I was proposing.
Sounds good
That's
to me.
fantastic.
I like it.
Okay, so then the question becomes, when's our next meeting? Can you do it in 2 weeks? Seventeenth.
And I would likely defer to Tina as well for knowing schedules and similar. How much time do you need to make it 100% perfect?
Okay, now you're asking for a lot. I think that if you want to go for the 17th and you're okay with getting the draft, like I said, it may be on the 14th, so you may only have the weekend before to look at it.
Okay.
Kind of pinches you guys a little bit. So if you're okay with that kind of pinch, I can get all of these changes in, you know, so that you can look at it and then you can adopt it, because even during your adoption part, you can still, if there's some last minute tweaks, you
Yeah.
can always address those as motions.
Have to just be done individually.
Right, but we should have the bulk of it
Yeah.
ironed out, because I know I did some renumbering. I found some of the letters didn't track right. There was a little bit of grouping about I wanted you guys to look at the table too, to make sure that the way it's laying out actually makes sense, so I can send that out to you guys tomorrow.
That'd be nice.
You know, at least you have the outline, you can start looking at that part of it. And I'll get you the clean one with the line numbers, because I don't know what happened to that, so I'm sorry about that. Yeah, because when you got to 1633-060, we got into parking lot landscaping, but it ran a continuous list that picked up site enhancement, which is a 15% you talked about, Tim, so that's going to move out. And then it had character specific and use specific, and I thought it would make more sense to call those out as major headers for screening requirements and buffering between land use requirements, because that's exactly what it is.
Would.
And then that way they're not buried up under, for whatever reason, I think it was just the changes that made them tag under parking lot landscaping, but that's not really what they are. And so it makes more sense and ties to the table better, even if you're using text and table, it relates to each other better. So if you guys are okay with the 17th I'll try and get it to you earlier. I have planning commission next week, so I've got a reso that I'm working for them and Walmart edition, so conditional use, so it's for pickup, online pickup storage area, so that'll eat up a little bit of my time this week, but then I'll have time next week if I don't have it this week.
Just tell them to stack the connexes like Legos.
No, they actually, I looked at their aerial. They don't have the run of connexes like some other not to be named department stores. They actually have an all interior, and I was pretty impressed because I thought I was going to have to deal with that in my packet.
Is that what Target's doing? Is that
I'm not, no, they're doing interior
That's what they're
remodel.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just storing their fixtures and stuff. That's just temporary.
Yeah, I saw that when you mentioned that. I was like, oh, I thought it was just gonna be a remodel.
Yeah, that one is.
Having lived through some remodels lately, living through remodels, it's a go rope.
Yeah.
your stuff that you had in place takes up five times as much space. As soon as you move it, it's just go road.
And for the public attendees, you know, the agenda's gonna have a spot for comments, but if you guys have any comments that, you know, as you go through it and see, it'll be posted online. If you send me an email tomorrow and I can send it to you, Tim, and then you can farm it out to whoever you want to look at it, because I know I have your email address. Other than that, I'm not sure I have anybody else's.
Too, but
Yeah, probably
Bob doesn't
Bob's.
check it much. So
I can get that out to you, but you can email me comments and I can forward it to the group ahead of
Perfect.
time individually, and then they'll have it at the next meeting too.
Awesome.
And if you don't get it ahead of time, even if you get it the same day of, you know, just still go ahead and send it in case you're not able to come or whatever. It's
Yep.
better to have it in writing because they can look at it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
And Tina, procedurally, like if Tim wanted to give me a call, if you had a question, is that appropriate?
It is, you just want to disclose it when, at the next meeting, they called you and what you talked about. So
Yeah.
the group has that too.
And I would just say as appropriate if, since you showed up, if you do have any questions, I'm happy to share what I know.
Perfect.
And the only thing I'll add, now the Open Meetings Act, I won't talk about certain communities that don't care about it, but we do. So you can talk to him and you can talk to him. But if you take what you learned from him and go to him, now it becomes a serial meeting.
Oh,
So
don't get us in trouble.
yes.
so if you talk to him, you talk to him, then you go to talk to him, you need to tell him that you talked to him.
Gotcha.
And don't tell
Can I
them
tell
what they
that?
said. You can say I talked to
You can say I
Peter,
talked
but
to
don't
him,
tell
I'm
him
not
what you
gonna-
talked
I'm
about.
not gonna be the conduit.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
But it's like two of us can talk and the other two can talk. But if you then mix up that subset,
Yeah.
now it's a violation.
Interesting. Okay.
It's how the rules are written.
Yep.
And if you're on a committee
I've kinda
of three,
seen it,
if
yeah.
you're on a committee of three, you can't talk at all.
Yep. Two is, yeah.
Interesting.
In fact, there was a violation we learned about way back where it was a committee of three and two guys went to the restroom. Someone was watching, they were talking. Oh yeah, they're just, and it's just whatever, whatever. And we got whacked. So it's dumb, but it is what it is. So,
There's rules. I need to know the rules.
but if
I
you
love
send an
rules.
email to her and she distributes it, it makes it open, it's
Yep.
kosher.
It's open discussion.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's the best way to keep it most of the time.
But if you need to make a phone call and ask questions, do it.
So it would be
Just
helpful
those
then,
guys.
after you get the final draft out, if we have any comments on that, give those back to you. as soon as we-
Yeah. If you see anything else,
Yep.
that's just a minor tweak or something, especially if it's just, hey, that thing's not numbered right, or it's I can do that, because I can still always add a comment out to the side or create a list and highlight it in yellow so we'll know what.
Some of this, it's like, we've been working on it so long. I'm sure there's typos or something in there that we've all glossed over so many times. Unintentionally, it's like,
No, we never have that.
No.
Certainly.
Yeah, we never go blind to the standard stuff.
yeah,
This is why we make sure that if I'm doing a project,
somebody else,
Right.
Tim,
Eyes.
you need to look it over.
find out what I
Because you
missed.
haven't seen it. You don't
Yeah.
know what I'm dealing with. It all jumbles together.
Well, you know your intent and you thought I read that and then you
Yes.
come to find out I didn't read that.
Yep.
So, and that's part of why we have this many people.
Okay.
Anything else we need to cover today, guys?
Nope.
Okay, so any objections to leaving the committee of the whole?
Done.
Hearing none, we will exit the committee of the whole and,
So we make a motion to table the resolution till next meeting.
Yeah. to
sounds like you
April
just
17th.
did.
Alright, I'll make a motion to table resolution serial number 2301 to April 17th meeting.
Second.
Okay, any objections? Hearing none, motion passes. We'll review it on the 17th. Okay, so the next item, public comments. Hello, public. You got 3 minutes. Ready to go.
I'm good.
Just say your name out loud and
Yeah,
then
you don't have to say anything. You're just welcome to.
I don't know that we're informed enough to make
Well,
comments at this point.
that's the nice thing about the public process. You don't have to be informed at all. You can
I
just
get my
run your
3
mouth.
minutes.
You got 3 minutes. You can tell us about whatever you want. No, but seriously, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff happens here and people are like, well, where'd you go do that?
Yeah, we want to be more
Oh, it's
involved.
open to the public. We,
Yep.
we want to
Yep.
be more involved, and because we're seeing a lot of clients come in and they're constantly having questions, right?
And so we
I don't
want
know,
to be a part
Call
of.
Tina down at the city office.
rules.
I'm sure she doesn't love always that. And
Yeah.
if we can mitigate some of it.
What do you guys do?
We're land surveyors.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool, okay.
Bull Moose land surveying.
Okay,
So
okay.
Well, read up.
That's what we've been trying to do, and slowly but surely taking on the little projects here and there that we can help out on.
Yeah,
so.
with these site plans and stuff.
You're gonna need to look at primarily from the standpoint of these non-conforming sites,
Mhm.
changes,
Yeah.
and anything under 5,000, because other than that, you have to be a landscape architect to
Yeah.
do larger
Yep,
projects.
yep.
So, so make sure that works for you for
Like
the
we're doing
scale of
that family
project.
promise one,
Right.
that's the perfect, like, we want to
Mhm.
help them out as best we
Right.
can. And knowing more about this.
Is only going to help our
Yeah.
clients.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's our 3 minutes.
Yeah. So we're staff and committee comments. Gosh, there's so much to say. Well, mostly in terms of the better you guys understand this, the easier it is.
Yep.
And then the nice thing is things like this, there's process to amend it in the future without this. But a lot of work's gone into this. I don't know how many, when did we start this?
June of last year.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Correct, 2 years, yeah.
It's been a lot of hours of work. And, Marie.
So Marie shows up just in time to be adjourned at 6:11. No, just kidding.
Marie, you showed up
Hello.
in time. You showed up just in time for your comment section.
Oh.
Nice timing. Well done.
Well,
You
know,
just wanted to get on the minutes. That's what you wanted.
there you go.
Oh, thanks for chiming in.
Sorry about that.
Oh, understood. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, especially a lot lately.
And we're actually just about to adjourn post public comment, so I won't make them tease you too much.
I deserve it. I deserve it.
You know what? You gotta make a living too. That's what's the fun about volunteer time. That's why there's 6 of us and we only need 4 to work. Part of my comment, you had a question.
Yes, sir. Ellery Gibbs with Bull Moose Surveying. With what you guys have got here, how much more surveying are we looking at beyond what was in here?
4 times.
Well, that's just one of the concerns. I did notice in
My
here,
impression.
site clearing that we have to do. There is an as-built. From what it looks like, it's not much of a change from what was already there.
I don't think so.
And a lot of what we may be seeing on the Bull Moose side or the land surveying side is just the basics that we would already do. And a lot of this is going to go more towards the planning and the architect, or the landscape architects, instead of us having to deal with it.
And like you said, under 5,000 square
Yeah.
feet. kind of
If you're
stuff.
doing if you're
Yeah.
brave enough to take on a landscape plan, then
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
it would impact you. Now, the one place you would play a role, because you mentioned it, is, for example, if there's a large scale development, and it's a conditional use,
I've done
say a
one of
Target's
those.
going in, something
Right.
like that, and they're developing a site and they're showing an area of the site to be left in natural vegetation. That will have to be delineated by the surveyor.
Okay.
And it'll have to be staked out and marked out so that it's clear where the edge of the clearing limits are, because in the past, there's been mistakes, overzealousness, or
Somebody
just
with the dozer
mistakes.
comes through and decides
Yeah.
to.
Oh, let me just help you out. I'll just go ahead and take the rest of it down and get it out of the way, or,
And then
you
lose all
know,
their credit for existing vegetation.
right.
Yeah.
And then it
We
creates
see
a
that too.
huge nightmare of trying to come up with a revegetation plan and all of that.
150-foot existing tree buffer was approved, but then they went
To
another 50 feet and that wasn't approved. So revegetate, so.
Yeah.
And a lot of what we end up dealing with is working with the public and going, hey, time out, you guys, there is a point where we have to say, stop. We have to be involved.
Yeah.
We need to delineate this.
Yeah.
Because otherwise Tina's gonna come back and whack
Fine you.
Oh, Charlie will,
whatever it
Tina
is.
won't. Tina write tickets.
Well, somebody
Like
here,
sick Charlie.
somebody here at the city, this has teeth and you all have to understand. 'Cause a lot of what we get from the public is, well, why does it cost us
Yeah.
so much?
How
Why
long
do you
can
have to do this? It's
Yeah.
like, you know what? It's codified. Everybody had the chance to public comment on this.
You
or
didn't
do
show
it,
up.
Or, and stuff wasn't done. So here we are.
I remember my comment now. Thank you. When this goes to vote, because it'll go through the planning commission and it will go to city council. Having been there before and sat on both sides of it, the anybody who wants to show up and say, hey, this is actually easier, this is, any positive comments are useful. If you look at this and you go, I like this better than the old stuff, if you can take 2 minutes, either send an email or show up and say, I like this better than that,
Right.
that would be helpful. Because everybody else involved, everybody who's, all the faces you see up there,
That's fine.
we put in a crap ton of time.
Yeah.
And all believe that this is better than that. She, I think, agrees. So there will be a few who say, I don't like it.
There always will be.
Always will be. But if there's a few people who, especially people who work in an industry that's applicable, that say, hey, we kind of like this,
Clear.
please just justify our blood, sweat, tears,
Show up for the meetings.
missed meals and for all the stuff. It would be appreciated. So if you don't like something on it, that's fine. But if you think as a whole, X is better than Y, say so.
Well, and I would say, and if there's a piece that you just don't agree and they say you're at the next
Then
meeting
say
and the
so.
committee still says that, please don't say, oh, that's a terrible code, don't adopt it. Just call out the section that you think is terrible.
Right.
Because unfortunately, a lot of times people just throw the whole thing out with the, the baby with the
Yeah.
bathwater
Right.
instead
Yes.
of,
How can we
there could just be
rephrase
one
this?
tweak
There
that could be
was
done and it
some
would be
sign
good.
code that went that way.
Yeah.
Mm.
And there's a story behind this. It makes his job easier, it makes your job easier. For me as a property owner, it makes it understanding it easier. There's a lot of easier involved. It is not perfect.
No.
But it won't be. But it's better. So thanks, guys.
I'm trying to come to more of these, just to.
Anybody else have anything? So at 6:17 PM, we are adjourned.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.
Everyone have a good evening.
Okay, bye.